Hi guys, welcome to the quarterfinals of IAM Asians. My name is Jay. I'll be the chair for this round. Welcome to the panel control. In government representation of team, in opposition team, and emotion about the undead, like invite the Prime Minister to start this game. Two characterizations before I move on to other things, right? Number one, we think that it is inherently bad for governments to bail out these companies for several reasons. Firstly, we think that zombie companies, number one, the point in which we realize that they cannot sustain it, the only point that, and the only thing they can do is pay for services and it just instead of the actual debt itself. We think that your governments generally have to pay a lot more, just the principal amount or whatever that they cannot pay in the first place. So 90% of whatever they owe, governments have to cover. And we think that that is a significant form of harm to number one, a government capability in terms of being able to find other sectors of your economy or other sectors or whatever your country needs as a whole. And I'll go on further to that in my arguments. Secondly, why do they normally fail? We're going to go through a process why they actually fail. Firstly, we think number one is obviously bad management. But secondly, and most importantly, we think the idea of zombie companies knowing that they didn't want to change and they didn't want to adapt to the new processes that existed in society. So for example, when Toshiba went to be undead, we think that was because Samsung came into the picture and created a lot more slick technology that existed in status quo. And for the fact that Toshiba couldn't keep up with that, they didn't want to adapt to that change. This is really harmful. What happens then? When you don't build them out, what can possibly happen and what is the possible change that we are more likely to prefer in comparison to their work? We think number one, you give room for other startup companies to come into play. We think firstly, that is although not definitely as promising, because obviously no economy is always going to be promising, we think there's a higher chance of success for several reasons. Firstly, we think newer companies or more startup companies are always more willing to adapt and change towards what our technology in society in the best case. For example, the point when Samsung came up with new TVs and new phones, they always continuously do that. That's why they still play, and that's why they manage to stick in the market, and that's why they're continuously growing. We think number one, when you always build up companies, you stop that form of progression, number one. But secondly, the point in which your startup companies want to compete, you forbid them from happening as well for several reasons, several harms. Firstly, obviously you're new and you're old, but your zombie companies won't have this or won't definitely won't be pressured into doing that because number one, there is no other form of company that can possibly take them over. When you promise to always build them out, so the competition never changes, they will never be willing to adapt to that change. But secondly, we think your local right? Secondly, we think that the biggest harm that you get, opportunity can come up here and tell us, is that there is a local form of dependency towards this company. And we think there are several things that we can say to that. Number one, we think that zombie companies obviously have a huge lobbying power, and obviously, even though they don't have enough to pay off that debt, the amount of power that they have in the economy is huge. Investors that are within society right now would obviously want to invest in your zombie companies compared to startups because your government promises returns no matter what. The point in which you don't promise to build them out, you allow investors number one to realize like, hey, let's not be like speculative marketing. Let's actually continuously know what we're doing in the first place. But secondly, we think the point in which you always have like an incentive to build out these companies, number one, you force individuals to never allow a new startup company to grow to progress the amount of economy they can gain. We always have this issue. Oh yeah, before that. So if your investors are going to take out this burden and you say that really high lobbying power and there are other companies, how are there startups will flourish? Oh yeah, so here's the comparison, right? Your startups will never fly because you always promise to have a bailout. The comparison is when that's when our number one investors will probably say, I am not going to go into Toshiba because I can clearly see a difference. But number one, the bigger incentive is knowing that I will not be promised a return by the government, the point in which they fail. Secondly, what is the comparison? We think that you structurally inhibit medium enterprises from growing into their economy. Medium enterprises that can always contribute. They possibly could grow into that big company and contribute the exact same amount of economic benefits you want to obtain from zombie companies as well. It is extremely harmful when you inhibit medium enterprises, number one, because they obviously have a higher incentive to keep up to the amount of progress we have in society. So you'll probably try to always remain in the market as well. They always have the incentive to do so. Your zombie companies go, the point in which you build them out. But secondly, let's tackle the idea of local economy being dependent upon that, because they're obviously going to talk about you just losing out on jobs, losing out on a lot of factors that will harm your local economy. Several things. Number one, we consider to the short-term harm. Obviously, the point in which we take our, we don't build individuals out, that sector of individuals that have been working in Toshiba, working within zombie companies, would obviously not have a job. But what is the comparison? Within the comparison is number one, as much as there's short-term harm, the amount of money that you put into funding your principal financial account, we could have put into welfare systems to cater for individuals that didn't have a job in the first place. We could have catered to giving medium enterprises the ability to start up companies to give out the same amount of jobs that they could give in the first place. But why is this better? Medium enterprises that are willing to say, have this. Medium enterprises that are willing to stay within the company or stay within the economy to continuously produce your economy, to continuously progress your economy, number one, will not keep your workers on a deadline, will not keep them graded. Because under your side, the point in which you don't adapt, your workers don't grow as well. Your workers always stay graded and they will always be kept in their mentality. That is what your company is saying. The point in which your competition or medium enterprise that can contribute to that, we think the amount of change goes focus number one. They probably also have a better lifestyle because at least they continue to in comparison to being stuck in their job. We think the comparison is a lot better, not only because obviously there's short-term time can exist, but we think the long-term run, not only because we sustain your local jobs better, we think that we also further them better in whatever they learn in their lives. I mean, the job opportunities they get, the skill sets they get is substantially better under our side of the house. Everything that is a lot better. The comparison that they have is continuously supporting zombie companies that will always use it to their advantage. Meaning always say invest, always for investors that I promise you return because no matter what, I am too big to fail no matter what. The comparison is a lot worse because your ability to progress within a market is a lot more undermined under your side of the house in comparison to ours. We understand these companies are big, and at the point in which they fail, we lose a lot of jobs, but we think we can do that a lot better. Although there's a short-term harm, in the long term, we can cater to number one, your local jobs a lot better, but number two, we think that we also have a lot of chances to medium enterprises to further the progress of your market that is currently happening. That is a necessity for your market to progress. So at the best case, you allow people to have that job, but it's stagnant form of way. We allow our progress to exist to the maximum level, and we get a lot better on a comparison. So sure, if your biggest argument is local jobs provide the and say it's a short-term harm, but in the long run, at the very least, the ability for individuals to progress and increase their skill set. So the point in which they don't have a job, at least they can move to a different job. In your side of the house, you will always be stuck in Toshiba, always be stuck in companies that can never increase their skill set at the very least. So we think there is a lot worse on comparison. Go for the side, talk about it.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite you to go with
It is illogical to think that a company that is heavily linked to the local economy of the country suddenly decides one day that now I want to become a zombie company and decide to barely manage my funds and not innovate and decide not to move into making profits within the local economy, given the establishment of the role we play in that country. The position that we will take from side opposition is that the moment states do not bail out these zombie companies, that's when the local economy itself becomes far worse on their side. We will prove two things in this debate. First thing we'll prove is what will happen when you do not bail out these zombie companies, and the second thing is in bailing out these zombie companies, the string of benefits that you will get in improving the local economy itself. But before that, let's deal with Prime Minister. The first thing Prime Minister says is that these really big, too big to fail companies badly managed their funds and did not want to adapt. Let's question the logic in this. It is always in the interest of these extremely big companies to innovate, to make sure they're competing with these other companies in that nation, so that they are still able to influence all the other industries, given the interdependence of one big company to all the other subsidiary economies that take place in that country. The second thing they brought up was that, oh, now startups cannot compete. The characterization they use for startups is that startups are weak, startups are unsustainable. But why should this government now try and help these very startups that you claim that will fail, are likely to fail on your side? Because the comparison is, if a large company has been able to develop the entire economy and generate jobs, we think that's where the preference should lie. But even if these startups are worth defending, we think that in our world, when we bail out these large companies, your ability for a startup to flourish is much more better, given the diversification in one big industry can help on all the other industries. For example, Petronas, given that it has such a high influence in the petroleum industry, its ability to invest in all other key sectors means you're getting far more startups on our side. Thirdly, they say that this harm is short-term. Let's question this. How is losing 20,000 jobs a short-term harm? When the financial crisis took place in 2008, Barack Obama had to put in a 4-year plan just to remake back half the jobs that they were never able to defeat on their side. But understand that the moment you do not bail out these companies, what kind of assurance are you going to give to these investors, given that the economy in that nation is highly dependent on the flourishing of one big company? The moment an investor sees instability, the moment an investor loses confidence in that company, that's when all your investors will be pulled out. Your welfare programs will never be sustainable on their side. But the final bit of rebuttal is that, oh, now the assumption that they make is that workers are brain dead on our side. Understand the comparative is, here you have 20,000 workers with no jobs. At the very least, on our side, you have 20,000 workers who are able to diversify and move on to the other key sectors that this company leads on to have. What will opposition be okay with when we bail them out? The first thing we will do is that we will not only bail them out from their debt, but we will pay the entire loan that they've taken place, similar to what happened in the 2008 financial crisis. The second thing that we will do is begin a restructuring process for these organizations, similar with new improved regulations. And the final thing we'll do is also to provide them with more subsidies so that they are able to fast track their recovery into the position of the economy. But let's go on to my arguments. Before that, Mubarak, could you give me reasons as to why you think these companies failed in the first place? Okay, 2 reasons to this. Number one, a lot of these companies are likely to fail given the external circumstances that affect the local economy. The prices of oil, the local politics in that country, the confidence of investors. But secondly, we also think that it is always in the interest of these companies to regulate and make sure that they're able to resist the types of risks that they're faced with. First argument, what happens when you do not bail them out? The premise to this and the important framing to these companies, which was not provided by the Prime Minister, is 3 things. Number one, these large companies bring in not only just investment, key investments, but they also become a starting point for a lot of investors who come in, given their role that they play in starting up a lot of these small economies. So if we use the example of Petronas, this also means a lot of other foreign companies, given the stability Petronas brings to the current local economy, to now invest in it. Secondly, it is also the starting point for a lot of subsidiary economies. So for example, when we set up Proton in Malaysia, it became the starting point for the manufacturing of a lot more engineering and the auto parts of a particular car. That means a lot more jobs on our side. And if you look at the role that they play when they create all these other subsidiary economies, that means a lot more jobs for these individuals as well. But finally, we think the specific benefit that will become a clash in this debate is when it comes to employment. Understand the types of investments that these companies do are twofold. Firstly, in terms of education. So if you look at companies like Telecom or Petronas, they've invested in universities to make sure they develop human capital, or Bavaria in Germany made sure that they're able to train highly skilled individuals to continuously pump them into the engineering industry in that country. But what happens when these companies fail because of local politics, because of the decreasing of the price of oil? The nuance here is that they may fail, but they still hold a large control over all the other subsidiary economies within that situation. So yes, it may be reasonable to assume that they would probably cut down on a lot of jobs, but that does not mean that they lose their grip on a lot of these subsidiary economies that they take place. So if you, and as a result of that, if you do not bail them out, what is likely to happen is that now you force these companies to opt into more perverse decision-making processes. For example, they're likely to hide their paper trail. They're likely to they're likely to transfer assets into offshore accounts. They're likely to make sure that their CEOs do not declare their assets because they want to make the cost of going through a bankruptcy a lot lower. Because the moment you do all of these things, you mitigate your ability to pay into the bankruptcy or into the debt that you may incur. The second half to this is that once these companies now leave the economy because they have not been bailed out and they become defunct, two things will happen. Number one, there is a possibility that they will be replaced. But here's the problem with replacing one big company with another. Two things. A, it's extremely hard for you to recuperate given the time that they spend investing in the development of the economy. So if one big, large company has been there throughout the growth of one economy, your ability to now allow a new company to come in and recuperate or redevelop that same number of jobs in a shorter period of time is a lot more costly. So in their world, the government have to spend a lot more money trying to create more jobs, a lot more money trying to sustain all the other subsidiary economies that they will never be able to control. The clear example of this is in Detroit, where when the automobile industry crashed, there was no ability for them to regenerate this industry. So what happens there when they are not replaceable? That's when a lot of the investor confidence will drop down. And as a result of the investor confidence dropping down, I think that's when you lose out on the kind of investments you want to bring in. The conclusion to this argument is that when you do not bail out these companies, you leave the economy in a far worse off state.
Thank you very much. The room is super active, so if possible, do have conversations now. History after this round. Thank you very much. Like to make it
So here's what happened in Detroit. The automobile industry was failing and the government decided that since there's such big ties to the local community, let's continuously build it up because hopefully they'll adapt. Hopefully they'll make new technology and these are such big companies that they will replace it all. But they're also unsustainable. There's a reason why they're unsustainable, right? Because even though they didn't have the intention to fail, they couldn't adapt towards market situations. They couldn't innovate as well as other companies that are happening. That meant that this automobile industry became unsustainable and they left Detroit. Detroit was bankrupt, right? Yeah. That's why we think that it's time that we stop bailing out these companies on the basis that they give a lot of harm. I think it's time that governments recognize that in the long term, these companies provide horrible opportunities and horrible prospects for these particular places, and therefore we should get rid of them. Before I move on to our speech, I just also like to point out that a lot of analysis that they gave, firstly, are examples of companies that aren't really zombie companies, right? Like Petronas and stuff like that. The second thing is to also say that all these zombie companies are unsustainable for good reasons. So I'll give you reasons as to why in my issue. My primary issue is why maybe these companies would make it because there are several tiers towards this. But before that, a few points of responses, right? The first thing that they said, one of the parts I don't think in, is they say that now corporations, these big corporations will start to do perverse things such as offshoring, such as funny money and things like that. Firstly, I think that the fact that they are willing to do these particular things means that we shouldn't build them up. We shouldn't say these evil corporations for doing this. The second thing is that if they have the opportunity and the ability to do it, they would have done it already, which is a good thing, right? That we bail and give these individuals something up. Secondly, and thirdly, right? I think that you saying that they'll do perverse, bad things isn't a legitimate reason as to why we should continue sustaining them. Because that means that they'll continuously be there, but they'll never improve themselves. In fact, they'll just offshore the money and find it. Sit down. So why is this issue? Why bailing zombie companies is extremely important. I think the first thing we did Prime Minister was to analyze the utility of these companies in these situations. So yes, they give a lot of jobs to individuals, right? But we already done that in multiple ways. These companies failed. So what LO said towards this argument was to say that, well, they didn't intentionally fail. You don't care they intentionally fail. Obviously, they didn't intentionally fail, right? The fact that they couldn't keep up with other companies, the fact that even though they had pioneered this place in the start, that's why they have such a big hold that they couldn't continue innovating, continue improving, and continue competing in this market business, means that these companies should not deserve to be bailed out continuously. Sit down. That's why we rather prioritize startups, right? But then what did they say? Well, the thing is, these things are irreplaceable, right? Because they give so many jobs. And like, yeah, but that's the false comparative, right? Because the comparative is making it seem we won't replace these individuals. In fact, if we're not like we're replacing them with a lot of different SMEs, right? Meaning that these SMEs, number one, since they're not as established as you guys, have opportunity to adapt towards the market, which is the reason as to why your zombie business will sit down. I'll call it for you. This means that that means that all the jobs that they all the harms of all the jobs we lost are like not really like that bad on the outside because we still will fund all these SMEs to do it for you. Secondly, right, now on innovation. So what we argue here is that the fact that we build these individuals out means that there's a lack of incentive for you to innovate yourself better because you're still making some profit that you get, you still are in debt, but it's okay because my government will still build me out, right? I want to ask at what point will you stop building these companies out? Because if they continuously build up, they have no incentive to improve, no incentive to innovate. The second thing is that a lot of startups that have potential and have good ideas are normally brought down by these big companies, even though they're zombie, right? The fact is that they have more lobbying power, that they have more presence and more reputation compared to these random startups, means that they can easily suppress these individuals and make sure that new ideas aren't developed anymore because that's the competition that they make. Their response was that they have subsidiary markets, they create different startups from different economies, right? That's not really responding to what we said. We're talking about in that same market, in that same economy, why innovation and development will happen there. The second thing is that for you to just say that you are helping innovate in other markets doesn't necessarily benefit you because you rather have a company which isn't a zombie one where it has potential to develop the other subsidiary markets in these situations. So on the outside, we have more innovation, we have better technology, we have better ability to do well for these corporations. Yeah.
So in the 2008 financial crisis, where all these banks are horrible, evil people, in retrospect, would you have not built them out at all?
The issue, right, on workers. So their primary goal and their primary harm was that 200,000 of workers will die off. Firstly, we need to understand that these corporations are mostly unsustainable, right? This means that your 200,000 workers will probably die off in the future anyways, where you couldn't afford to build up this corporation anymore. What is the harm of this, right? I think on the outside, if these people, these employees are inevitably going to lose a job, they should be faster and quicker because in these circumstances, you are allowed to learn new skill sets in these particular things when the situation isn't that bad anymore. That means not only do we create new jobs in the future, these individuals are more skilled, right? Meaning that they have more transferable skills. They learn how to operate different machines. They understand technology and machinery better. All these are exclusive benefits that only can happen on the outside of the house. Fourthly, right, on creditors, and this was extremely important. So we say that investors in status quo only invest in all these companies because they know that the possibility of failing doesn't really impact them because these corporations will build up anyways. Their response was to say that, well, now when you don't build these individuals up, the economy looks shaky, the economy doesn't look. Two responses to this, right? The first thing is that investors don't just stay stagnant and not do anything. I'm sure you'll look at different prospects and see which has the most potential. And this, I think that's even better, right? Because now investors don't just oh, this is a good corporation because it has been here forever, let's just invest in it. More often than not, they're going to evaluate which corporation and which SME has the best realistic idea that can bring them more money. That means that they're more likely going to fund these particular SMEs, which cannot happen under your side, right? Because under your side, you're not going to take the risk, you're going to take the step back as to say that all because these individuals are going to be built up in the future, let's just invest in these particular things. I feel like these creditors are good, help these develop these small SMEs rather than your side, right? The third thing is that I do not mind some investors losing out. I mean, I do not mind some investors not investing anymore because recognize that investments going into these zombie corporations, they don't necessarily materialize in these particular circumstances. What's the whole conclusion towards this particular issue? I think generally the economy is better, right? When you get rid of this random company, not random company, this big company that isn't really contributing much and is paying minimum wage towards the workers, we develop this place and make sure that it doesn't become another Detroit.
Thank you very much. The reason why side government will lose this debate is it lies in the alternative. Could you look back at your notes, they either propose you replace them with startups or SMEs or alternative bigger companies that can take up their volume, or the government will take up its role and pump money into welfare and funding. economies, and the second I will talk about the local economies, and then maybe by time about innovation, because we first, on companies and when they will become better. Because according to them, the investment into these companies are because of investors doing this because they think companies are really reliable and stable. And the alternative is investors should invest in other startups because those are more reliable companies and they're better. I will say two things about this. In a world where your investors see that these companies are shaky and there's low investor confidence, they're not going to put money into an equally risky and likely fail startup. They're all going to put their money entirely out of this country and put it into other countries that are more sustainable or other countries that are linked to companies that are better invested. So the examples we gave you maybe are not examples of zombie companies, but examples of countries that are heavily linked to companies. Therefore, all the parallels are exactly the same. So the world that Petronas, as a result of becoming a zombie company, is no longer making profit. It's heavily interlinked. Companies will just come to companies. Investors will pull out entirely of Malaysia and put money into economies that are more stable. So the investor money doesn't go into startups. It doesn't go into all the companies. It leaves the country entirely. So your alternative of less investors does more harm to the economy. But the second thing they say is they want companies to adapt for better technology. No, the premise in their case is if we don't bail them out, there'll be better incentive for companies to invest into technologies. Let's talk about the ability to invest in technologies. If you are barely making money to pay out the interest of your loans, all these companies don't have the capacity to invest. Even if they wanted to develop technology, even if they wanted to be competitive, they don't have the ability in your own. They're literally paying back to sustain themselves. The comparative is because they're so established. They're subsidiary economies. There are people that are linked to them, organizations, institutions, and investors tied to them. We might as well relieve them of this loan, give them the capacity to expand their current incentive in their current loan. In your world, who rely on innovations from startups who don't have investment, who are living in an economy that doesn't have investor confidence, where money is free. How do your startups innovate better? No. How do they adapt to technologies? Even if they wanted to, they couldn't do it better. Have a seat. But the third thing they say is, if these people are going to offshore money anyway, let's call them up. What the flying? In your world, if they're going to offshore, it is easier for them to offshore and they'll do it more. Not in our world. You don't have to offshore because you don't have to declare bankruptcy. Your assets don't have to go away. As a CEO, if you're going to suffer and you're going to go bankrupt, in your world, you have to forge more documents. The comparative is you don't have to go bankrupt. As a CEO, you wouldn't have to lose all your assets. You wouldn't have to start from ground zero. So the companies are going to be malicious. In your world, it will be more malicious. What's the comparative? Once we build them up and we restructure the same way we did in 2008, we can introduce regulations like the Dodd-Frank Act. Those things can happen in our world once they're alive and once the CEOs don't have incentive to remove the paper trail. So on a comparative, we get companies who act better, also have better incentive to invest because they're the only ones that are capable, they're the only ones that have the capacity. Second is about the local economies. First thing to note, they say that this problem is a result of bad management. Let us talk about the logic of this argument, right? They say companies often end up forming companies for the bad management they couldn't adapt. Let's compare this logic to the reasons we give you. Often companies don't want to end up as zombie companies. They do it as a result of political turmoil. When the TPPA was pulled out in the US and they left, a lot of companies started from that and have become sustainable but not profitable. And this wasn't a result of bad management. This wasn't a result of them being unsustainable because of just evil individuals. I think it's more likely and logical to believe that if these are circumstances they couldn't control. Even if it's bad management, let's talk about why you make these things worse. Because according to them, have a seat, they want people to rely on welfare. If there is a world in which your government is making money, not off of this huge company, but of other smaller subsidiary economies that are likely to fail up or rely on this one major zombie company, your government is less able to access welfare. There will be less political will for welfare. Less people will pay taxes because they're all freaking unemployed in your, so you don't have welfare, you don't have state funding into these smaller businesses because everything's reliant on the economy. The comparative is Proton. We built out Proton quite recently because they are a company that's sustainable but not profitable. In your world, all the people linked to Proton don't get the same capacity of governments are more likely to fail. But the second is startups. First thing I want to note is that the beauty of startups is if they benefit people. So when people they don't benefit people, no one cares about startups. Because not in your world, if it's true that they can lobby, if it's true that these companies have investors, then the company will be malicious and they'll take over startups anyway. But the second is if there are large entities in your world, then startups will die anyway. So I don't know why you get more startups in your world or better startups. But the second thing I'll say for startups is, look, in our world, maybe it's true that companies buy over startups, but their ideas, they got like Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat were all bought by bigger companies, and that's how they became sustainable. In your world, there will be a new startup, a brand new one, they compete to each other, but they will die out because no investor enters the country, because there's no confidence in the economy, there's no confidence in smaller startups, there are startups. Either people will want to have startups, or they are more likely to have startups innovation. No, then in your way, you rely on random companies entry, and the investor confidence is really low. People have the inability to invest. In our world, we're always getting them out because they're really big. I think it's preferable. So there's confidence in that. You make risky investments in our world because you can afford to do it. Investors make investments based on the risk factors. In your way, it's really risky. You'll always stick to very safe investments. Things that are really important and require risky methods like innovative fuel and efficiency of petroleum will never happen in your world because it's too risky. One day I might fail, I might not be bailed out, and then I will die. All innovations become worse in your world. You suffer more. I'm proud of this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. It's carry on. Understand that the amount of jobs large corporations create in economies is massively exaggerated inside our position. If you look at economies around the world, as Patrick told me last weekend, more than 90% of jobs are created by SMEs and startups. That's why, no matter how difficult it was super important for governments to make sure that those are the industries they prioritize, not bloody failing Toshiba. Two things in this book. One, who behaves better? And second, who has bigger crashes? Because I think that's like their single bullet argument. So first, who behaves better? Understand they said, oh, but like your startups will be bought over by companies anywhere. No, I don't think they will. The point is your companies are not there because they went bankrupt. I think that provides avenue for startups to be able to grow. Not to mention that less of an incentive to sell off. They have an incentive to sell off. They don't have an incentive to sell off if governments are able to create facilities for them through funding, through investment structures. Secondly, right, and I think this was also important, and I think this is what we told you, that even if you buy their best case scenario, that these corporations create a lot of jobs, understand that the way they set up through lobbying, because of the networks they have created, not through just financial muscle, meant that their ability to stop other jobs from being created in the economy. And that's how they sustain themselves in the local economy to begin with. But unlike other large corporations, who not only just stop other jobs from being created, but also adapt and create, these companies also fail to create at the same time. And that's the problem. Because not only they stop other jobs being created, they also fail to create the same. So let's understand, when they said, but corporations like them have a continuous incentive to innovate. A few things. But let's understand whether that worked in the real world. If that was true, why did they fail? Their response was external circumstances. Maybe the oil really fucked them up. The problem is that this is not a financial industry large failure. We're looking at singular zombie companies. That means you can't say that there were external circumstances that affected the industry. This means it's down to individual company decision-making failure. This means that most probably these are corporations who are too old and traditional to want to move on. They're too stubborn. But secondly, even if we buy their best case premise, and this was down to external circumstances, companies wanted to innovate, we point to their example of Proton, that how even if that was true in the past, the point at which you bail them out removes the incentive for them to continuously innovate, because the backs are no longer against the wall, and they know they're too large to fail, and they can get bailed out from governments whenever they bloody want. That means companies have an incentive to be competitive in the long run. No, thank you. On a comparative, we were much better off. But secondly, then they said, we will restructure them, and that's really great. Two responses here. First, it's really inefficient restructuring when governments try to own companies. They're incredibly bureaucratic, incredibly slow, and have no idea how to run private organizations. That's why in the vast majority of countries where nationalizations have happened and governments have constantly tried to take over and restructure, it has massively failed. Even if you want to take up your best case scenario of Goldman Sachs, we see similar financial products being offered to pre-2008 crisis even now. Why is that? Secondly, it's also because of lobbying, right? Because governments and these large companies intertwining is not a good competitive model, because these companies employ literally previous lawmakers and they have revolving door policies with them. That's why it's a shit idea to think you can ever be competitive again. Sure.
So you know when there are government-linked companies that are not zombies, large MNCs that lobby and become all those hubs, would you welcome the failure of all of them as well?
Sorry, can you repeat that last one?
All the GLCs, MNCs that lobby and all the harms you speak about that is regrettable, would you welcome the failure of all of them because you see they're so horrible to the economy?
Okay, so first thing, we are obviously like a side that doesn't want to bail them out. It's not a side that likes the like a lot of governments having GLCs. We would be happy to privatize the fuck out of them. But secondly, here's what we will also differentiate. I didn't have differentiated. The difference was companies that succeeded may have taken jobs elsewhere, but they were also successful in creating jobs of their own, that they were willing to adapt, and they adapted to circumstances and created jobs and networks of their own. That didn't happen in their world. What did they say? Oh, these companies have subsidiaries and they create lots of jobs. No, you see the restructuring you talk about would cut those subsidiaries for those companies to be competitive in the long run. So the benefit they talk about, like these companies have large subsidiaries and create shit ton of jobs, does not happen in the real world. These are companies that are insolvent and don't create that many jobs that they talked about to begin with. That's why it was important to privatize on startup. They did not have the opportunity to succeed under their world. No, thank you, take 15 seconds. Secondly, what this also meant, like, and secondly, this was the shittiest argument ever. Like, guys, the companies are near bankruptcy, like, they have all the incentive in the world to like evade tax. Yeah. Or like, sure, companies will always want to do evil things. You give them, like, they're more desperate, they're less desperate, obviously, they always want to make more profits. The comparative is, you give them more ability to do it, the point at which you sustain them. That means you literally, there's an argument to say, if you pay them out, they're going to take our money and go elsewhere, and you get taxed. If by that logic, we really shouldn't give them any money because they're not going to help back the local economy because they're going to take the money out into offshore accounts. Secondly, right, and they have more ability because they have more financial muscle. Secondly, what did we tell them? Look, investors move to startups. They said, but investors will go like to different markets. Look, some investors will, but in the real world, the average Malaysian does not invest in the New York Stock Exchange or go to other markets because the local economy is slightly down. Most investors stay in the local economy. Most investors, therefore, are more likely to think how to restructure and therefore are likely to be more supportive of companies with better ideas because they no longer want that financial, because they are not guaranteed returns. Therefore, they will now invest in companies with better ideas. That's how we have SMEs coming up. That's how we have startups coming up. Some of them will succeed, some of them will fail. The ones that will succeed will create even more jobs, and in the long run, will create more sustainable jobs in the long run. I think that's much better. Second, crashes. They said, guys, one hit of so many jobs being lost is really bad for your economy. I think we said two things that will lead to much larger crashes under their world that they never responded. One, it was better to lose a few thousand jobs now than to enter into their world. Why? Because it was unsustainable. Assuming best case scenario, they have huge investor confidence, and these people keep on investing in speculative markets. That would mean that in the long run, you create a bubble. In the long run, someone realizes that money is valueless. That means you have a massive crash and thousands of jobs that are reliant on that money existing goes away. They lead to longer, much more unsustainable crashes in the long run. Second reason what we told you, governments keeping on bailing them out eventually go bankrupt. Eventually don't have the capacity to keep bailing out zombie companies because they're systematically incentivized to fail. That means in the long run, you literally end up with governments that cannot support welfare policies, cannot support anything. You literally have the situation that exactly we saw in Detroit. We have seen what happens when governments think that companies are too big to fail and they keep bailing them out. Look, we see what that does to the local economy. It ends up like Detroit. It ends up with people riddled with crime, with no welfare systems, and governments utterly failing, and companies leaving you and never being grateful. We don't want to do that.
Thank you very much. Output.
The moment when the states don't bail out the zombies company, we think that this is the reason why the company being the zombies company cycle continues, right? We think that it is better to bail out and prevent the cycle and make the economy unstable. Because their side is the side that's going to make the economy unstable. God will literally don't about average argument about the stability of this economy, they lose this debate. But briefly in my speech, the first issue is which side promotes the economy better, and secondly, I'll tell you why their side don't save the economy in an economic debate. Thirdly, by those figures that not arguments that is more about. First issue, which side promotes the economy? Because according to them, we're going to pump a lot of money in the short term. Like, yeah, we agree with this because we're going to pump a lot of money in short term, but in long run, we'll be more likely to have this sustainable company to begin with. This sustainable company is not going to have like all the problems that you have said, right? Because like, in long run, they'll know the mistakes, and the cycle will be more likely to stop on our side. Second thing, this startup company will starting to come in. I'll take you later. I'll tell you when. They literally told you that even if startup occurred, outside will have it better. But I'm going to tell you later in this what they have told you, right? And thirdly, we think that our workers will have 20,000 workers to be diversified. Well, on their side, this is the moment when these people don't have the jobs to begin with. Outside the government, they don't have these 20,000 workers working in short term. According to the short term, we don't think that short term because like they, for example, for Barack Obama, it took years to solve the economy that happening. And then government said that it will happen anyway. We bail out Morrison to hide the document, right? We invest a lot of money. In our world, we get more money, we won't have it more, rather than your side will have it much worse. Second issue, on what I'll tell you why their side don't save the economy at all. Because like all of their argument is basically that hopefully they will success. Hopefully this startup will success. Like your startup culture has the same consequences with ours. But the difference is, firstly, when you don't build this company will bankrupt. And what's the harm here, right? This company is the whole reason why the economy is getting better. And the reason why this economy, like of the country itself, is based on this company that affect the whole economy, right? They don't save the this startup that they talk about. It's not going to save the economy, you know, because they never explain to you. Like they also tell you that they don't deserve to be built. To recognize that the company, when the company died, it will harm the economy as a whole. Because the DPS said that they won't bail out even though the country is in a very horrible economic situation. In an economics debate, I don't know why they're not going to save the economy as a whole, because they don't tell you what's the outcome of having this startup to begin with. And then there's no proof on how they will make the economy, the country's economy better. We prove to you on their best case scenario about startup, right? Because somebody has told you that they become zombies because they're affected by external access, not because of the management that they talk to you about. That's not the reason. That's not the case, right? Because like we have told you that the external reason, for example, the decrease of the economy because of gas and oil, for example. We think it's the second thing. We think that when there's no intervention to start up inside government, we think that on our side, the big company will be able to invest the startup better if they wanted to, right? We think that on our side, and on their side, it's too risky without any backup, because like this company, like the moment when these big company that affect the whole local economy, like the economy of the country died, their side giving you the startup culture that has no guarantee that they're going to be succeed. The country itself is going to be much worse. That's why the economy is going to be much worse. I don't know how they're going to solve the economy better. Fourthly, we have told you that startup won't be able to stand without no confidence, because the argument is that most startups will go to a very low economic rate, which is according to them, when this big local company goes down, that's when the startup culture will get, the startup will go in. I don't think they're going to get it because they know the economy is so low. For example, not like God knows, like no one wants to invest in Malaysia because of the low economy. And the reason why we go to like Singapore to invest in just higher economic rates, right? You're not going to have the harms, and you're not going to have the benefits. Firstly, Mubarak said it's a singular company because of the management. Even if it's tied to the local economy, it's not singular company because it's not about the management itself. And all the harms that Mubarak said will happen in your side, because like the globally happens worse on your side because of the MNCs that is happening, right? And then I'm going to tell you, like, there's no response on this model at all by the Deputy Prime Minister. It comes from Mubarak's speech. We think it's a bit too late, we cannot credit that for them. I don't know what the hell the outcome after Mubarak's speech. We think it's too late, new arguments from them. And response on model by government can't be constructed. We think that there's no responses at all from Amrit's argument, right? Like, what have they told you? They've told you that our policy, right? We have told you that to bail out the companies that are tied to local economy will pay off the entire deal. So this is to prevent having the same cycle to happen again. We have told you this explicitly. They've never wanted to rebut on our best case scenario. They lose this debate. Secondly, we have told you that this are like if not bailed out company will be worse. The company will has been invested heavily, right? We have told you that, right? then the benefits and cost is going to gain much better on our side. Because when you have this local economy better, people will be more likely to invest to your country better. But sure.
So, okay, your best case scenario, lots of investor confidence. People keep on investing in the speculative markets. In the long run, it becomes unsustainable for the government to keep funding that. Someone realizes it's a bubble, it's not valued much. In the long run, by preventing a shorter crash, you lead to a much bigger one and a much bigger loss of jobs.
If the company is not stable on your side, why would people invest in your country? On our own, because the economy itself is sustainable, because it's stable to begin with. That's where the company is going to be to invest on you better, right? And that's like government said that investing into our company creates a bubble. I don't think it won't happen. It won't be a bubble because like the company itself will be the money will be valuable because they give job and investors confidence. I think confidence is one of the biggest important in this debate. They don't want to deal with that at all. Second thing, we have told you the harm is going to happen on their side, right? Harm firstly. Once company leaves the economies, new companies to replace and not as strong and not as better, right? This is the moment the companies that a lot of investors not going to have the confidence in that country. We have also told you that there will be less likely to fall into the same trap on our side because they know the consequences. The reason why people bail out right to begin with, on our side we have more stable economy because the local economy is affecting the economy of the country. And on outside government, they will have this because the company will be more likely to keep replacing, and that's the reason why the economic stuff is not going to be stable. Lastly, we have told you that even if it is stable on their side, they incentivize to opt out the important inflation like Moshiba to begin with. We think it's much more favorable on side position, very proud focus.
Thank you very much. I'd like to remind the way I will structure my reply is to investigate if side government gets the things they claim they wanted to get. Even if they don't get those things, no matter how evil our companies are, they're preferable than their own. Let's talk about the things they wanted. First thing they wanted this debate was a world run by many different SMEs and smaller startups because they were more competitive, they're more likely to innovate, and they don't have the same hierarchy of being brain dead like ours. Let's talk about how likely this scenario is. Because to their credit, they did say that these startups are less likely to be brought up in our world, and they're more likely to be not in the market. But to the extent of that, we gave you many reasons why this is untrue. The first reason we gave you, in a world in which there's low investor confidence, and people are putting up money because it's high risk and low, so the companies interlink to every part of the economy, subsidiary businesses, other jobs in the economy, whether or not a country is a marketable country, means that the money that investors put would be put to startups to be pulled out entirely. So there are other profitable countries like Singapore, not Indonesia. There are other profitable countries like Vietnam, not Malaysia. So why did we put money into startups? I didn't hear a reason why. But the second thing we told you is to hell with startups. So in your world, they're not likely to be able to sustain the needs of the economy. I'd rather a startup be bought out. The idea exists, the same way it existed in our world, that in your way it exists, gets jobs, and then dies out, and then more and more exist in your. So startups, they don't actually get in gas. The second thing they say is, this is a bad investment. Well, eventually we'll end up in a bubble, and that's a really bad into our best scenario. It's really unbearable. Let's talk about this. We give you many reasons why this is not a bad investment, rather than quite valuable investment. Because the premise of a bubble means that money is valueless. Let's talk about how valuable this money is in our world. Because in our world, when we invest money to a zombie company, it's sustainable, maybe not profitable. All the other businesses that are linked to it, the jobs, the money that people have in terms of capital purchasing power, all exist. So it's not a bubble, it's actually something that costs sustainable growth. Maybe not profitable, but definitely not losing money. We compare them in your world, but there's a vacuum of money that exists. That's when a bubble happens. That's when all the other assets become less valuable. That's when money starts going to other places where it previously exists. You create a bubble in your world. But the third thing they say is they want alternate companies because we can fill up the void vacuum with better companies. Like if you say lobbying is so bad, government corporations create a monopoly, you don't have to ban all those companies as well. And once I say, yeah, we disagree because at that point, I really don't know who drives the economy of this country, who pays taxes, who funds welfare, who gives governments the money and the capacity to create the systems that you say give subsidies. If you are against all those companies who defend startups, I don't know what country you live in your world. So I think the three outcomes of the government to give long-term sustainable growth for people don't exist in their world. What's the comparative debate? According to them, we can restructure, but it will still be the same as pre-2008. There's never been a subprime loan given post-2008. Companies like banks are evil, but they be benefited because we capacity lost it. Sure, Toshiba has less business to innovate, but they definitely have more capacity and ability to incur risk than Yowo. But all the companies in Yowo that are in a subsidiary or are not as heavily built as ours have high risk. We think investors are not going to pump money into things that are really risky that require innovation. The things I said about price efficiency, that's going to become more accessible, won't get invested in Yowo. So I see the trade-off of bidding on is true we get a monopoly, but a monopoly means assurance that gives us the ability to invest in high risk innovation. So you want innovation, we get it better in our. And in conclusion of the gas case, I have yet to hear a reason why removing these companies means the alternative is better. Because it's not a short-term thing. We're still fighting against the 2008 financial crisis. We can make something else. When the jobs are gone, people lose capacity to invest in the economy. It isn't a long-term thing. It creates all the crimes we talked about. It makes the world worse. It isn't something you can replace. Even if you replace it, it is really one of the times it's
Thank you very much.
On the side of opposition to win today's debate, they needed to prove harms. Their harms were twofold. Number one, large companies will have branched out, right? And now the subsidiary companies will die out. The second thing is that we lose a shit ton of jobs. Recognize that we told you whether right now or in the future, these are unsustainable things. So as long as we prove that it's a high chance that these companies won't bounce back, then I think all their harms and or benefits, I don't know what they're proposing, will not occur in today's period. Why is the reason why? And we're going to use their example, right? They say there is external factors such as market prices changing and things like that, right? To recognize that this industry didn't fail. It's more than not one or two companies who failed to adapt towards all these changes, who couldn't adapt towards these changes. Toshiba died, but the technology industry didn't die, right? It's because Toshiba was unable to cope with the changes that has happened. That's why all the bailouts happening do not amount to anything else, right? Because they already shown like high probability that they will not bounce back. That means in the future, when you cannot build them up continuously anymore, when investors start to lose confidence because you realize that in these situations, Toshiba has no chance whatsoever, all of your harms will materialize even more under your sun. The worst part is, you wasted all your money bailing them out. Money that could be used to provide welfare towards these individuals who will lose their jobs sooner or later. Money that could have been used to invest towards to invest in SMEs, which show prowess. Also recognize that our burden isn't to prove why SMEs will definitely flourish, because we will need one or two to flourish to replace that huge particular market, right? Also, that's how we achieve this particular thing. So this is where I start to enter the issues, right? Firstly, on startups, we'll start here, because if you prove that they won't, or you prove that there's a probability that you do better than this unsustainable company who has no incentive to do better anymore, then we'll win this issue, right? Yeah. So firstly, the first reason why they say startups won't work is because there's no investors' confidence. To which we said a few things, right? The first thing that we said was that the fact that these startups firstly under your side the probability is low because all these companies will clamp down on them. Their response was, well, MNCs already exist and you already stifled this technology, the technological advancement of these particular places. But recognize the comparative, right? That we do not mind these MNCs stopping these individuals as long as they provide jobs towards these individuals, as long as they provide innovation and technology. Your unsustainable zombie ones don't, right? Your unsustainable zombie ones don't allow any technology or any development because they know they cannot adapt, they know they cannot develop past these particular things. This means that somehow there's no investor confidence in these particular areas, right? Here's what we said to that. We said that we don't need as many investors because number one, the money that we had without scaling these individuals up could have been funneled towards all these SMEs and startups. The second thing is that we don't need many individuals to invest, right? We just need one correct investment to work, and therefore you increase a lot of it will be a lot better. The third thing we say is also even if you have more creators under your side, the money goes amounts to nothing towards a startup that will continuously fail, right? Towards a corporation that will continuously fail under your side. This leads up to like things like the discussion on innovation, right? This discussion they say that these places have a better capacity to do so. But this was like not like adaptive towards all the characteristics of this particular company that we use. Firstly, they amount to traditional ways, which is why they most likely could not adapt towards these particular things. They could not adapt towards newer technology or newer forms of making new products and things like that, right? We think that SMEs are more likely to be brave and take risks. These individuals are more likely going to succeed on the outside, whereas we have more individuals investing towards this particular stuff. I'm not gonna say. Okay, so therefore, in this conclusion towards this issue, I think on the outside we have more chances of individuals giving better products towards this thing, right? But I think the most important part of this debate is about the individuals who will lose their jobs. Under both sides, that will happen. But at least on the outside, we provide them more skills to be able to bounce back from this particular issue. At least you allow them to get into different SMEs as a whole. And I think for these poor individuals, you bailing them out just gives them false hope and traps them into the bubble, which they cannot get out of.
Thank you.